Lecture capture is basically everything right now for higher education because the students want it.
Now more than ever before, it is something that is expected.
So we did a lot of reframing for our faculty and showed the benefits.
The faculty, they're saying, hey, I want that in my classroom.
The end result is so rewarding. It really is.
Let's jump right in and talk about lecture capture on campus. What's the case and what impact has it had at UNLV?
Lecture capture is basically everything right now for higher education because the students want it. If they can't get to class, or if they want to change their classes, or if they just want to remember something that the instructor said earlier in the class, when they go home, they just type in that keyword and there it is. So students now, they go to class in the morning, they go to class in the afternoon, they go to class in the evenings. Sometimes they're changing shifts. Sometimes they have an emergency. We all have life problems that happen and you have to change your shift, right? So they now have that at their disposal. The content now being captured is not just the video, it's audio. Sometimes our instructors don't want to be on camera at all. Sometimes it's a talking head over a PowerPoint, right? And sometimes it's just audio. Sometimes it's a mixture of both. So whatever it is, it's content, right? And the content is what the instructor is trying to get across, and it's what the students are paying for. That's the key here. It's a matter of getting the best bang for the student's buck and getting that resource for them to use during class, after class, and heck, even after the semester's over, they can always go back and still look at that stuff and still learn about stuff when they're studying for that final. When they're studying for that final and they thought about something what happened the first month of school, they can remember what it was, but not all of it. They could just go back and watch that video.
Andy, what's your perspective on lecture capture and how has it impacted your life at UNLV?
Well, you know, when I started here, that was my sole purpose, was to come in and help out with lecture capture because it was so fresh and new at UNLV. But I think there was a little bit of a more broad perspective, which was help us figure out how our faculty could be excited about it instead of just saying, well, if I do this, nobody's going to come to my class anymore. So we did a lot of reframing for our faculty and showed the benefits, a lot of which Frank mentioned, especially the parts about giving students that opportunity to go back and review anything they may have missed, because most students don't miss classes intentionally. They really want to learn, they really want to succeed, and it's really important that in a world now where we have to be accommodating and make sure that people have access to these things, that it's really at the forefront of our mission.
Chris, your perspective from Panopto, you see a lot of campuses around the world leveraging lecture capture. What do you see as like those top line benefits?
Well, I think now more than ever before, it is something that is expected. All these kids that are now coming into higher education, their entire high school career, video has been an integral part of that. And so everything that Frank and Andy said, but the other part of it too, is the equitable aspect of things. So for folks who have learning disabilities or struggle with, learning, adding video and lecture capture is just another level of accommodating those folks in a deeper meaning. And we see that all across the world.
Our provost charged us with a big, bold plan, and he says, what are we going to do? And I said, well, you need to find me funding, and we're going to make you the best rooms possible. Cool. And that's what we did. We rolled out our Rebel Flex program. And the Rebel Flex program, we did it in pilots. So we did a first phase was basically we were going to learn, the instructors were going to learn. We had zero time to plan and prepare, and it was a guessing game.
Sure.
And then the pilot went so well, we rolled right into the second phase of it. So we added cameras, we added ceiling microphones. We duplicated one of our classrooms, Rebel Flex classrooms, in that space to specifically train the instructors on how to roll out the pedagogy that was required for their new Rebel Flex classes. And from there, the faculty come to us now and they say, can we go for a training? Could you bring more people in? Can you do this sort of thing? We could not have a better way that this rolled out. We're really, really proud of what we got.
And it just puts a nice ray of light into our eyes whenever those faculty members say, this is a lot easier than I thought it would be. And it makes such a difference.
Let me just make sure I got top line. So we're talking 300 rooms of every type, size, scale, from the Dolby Atmos room that you took me into, which is probably the coolest cinematography experience I've had in a long time, to a PT room where you want to have an overhead camera so you can show massage, to a golf simulator where you're teaching students how to run their own pro shop. Yep. Does that give a sense of the complexity and diversity of the rooms?
Right now, Andy's got the numbers. I believe we're at 120-ish, somewhere in there. And that's it's a great portion because Of our GP rooms, our general purpose rooms that anyone can schedule, we have about 210 of those, and I would say we're at about close to 100 of those.
Cool.
So what we're doing now is we're actually going back to the faculty, because the faculty who are teaching in the GP spaces are now coming back to their discipline-specific places, and they're saying, hey, I want that in my classroom.
Interesting.
So we built a living ecosystem of rooms, like a catalog, and now we have folks come in and say, hey, we're doing a renovation now. I want that Panopto in my classroom.
Wow.
What do I have to do to get that to work? What boxes do I need? So that's up to myself and Andy and our teams to develop the design for that and to move that in.
That's fantastic. And Andy, give me a top line. How many captures are you guys doing in a year?
Oh my goodness. Well, I can kind of give you a progression, because when I got started, maybe we were capturing about 500 total sessions for a semester, which we thought was incredible. And then as we started to go forward, 2019, 2020, and onward, we started to notice that number was really, really skyrocketing. In fact, this last term, we almost scheduled 4,000 sessions. The bottom line is more and more courses want to be recorded, just for the reasons that we've been discussing today.
So maybe let's transition to best practices. You know, we talked about that journey, starting small, growing the system over time. We've quantified what that looks like. Chris, why don't you come back in and give us perspective from your side as far as what do you see as best practices from Panopto's standpoint?
Well, it's interesting everything that Andy just shared as far as how they were able to roll out Panopto over the years, because that's so in alignment with what we're seeing out there. You know, starting off small and being able to scale out, that's something that a lot of Panopto institutions do because of the scalability of the platform. But I would say all of those things will work and only be as effective as you are integrated with the hardware that's in the classroom. Having a dedicated appliance in the classroom is something that is a must-have. Whenever we talk to leader institutions like UNLV and their success in rolling out lecture capture, that's one of the key components, not just using a podium, desktop computer, but being able to have a dedicated appliance. I think that's a really key component, so that you're not biting off more than you can chew, and you're also getting buy-in from faculty and things like that.
For us, the hardware is without it, you're useless, right? So you need a box in there to do that. So you choose the best boxes you can.
One of the things in those 500 rooms that like an Epiphan Pearl does is it allows you to deploy the device in any of those rooms, regardless of what technology's there, but have a common video interface back to folks like Andy. So you can have the complexity of your classrooms, and Andy can have the consistency and simplicity of that outbound experience. And that's, I think, one of the things that a lot of folks need to understand from an administrative standpoint. Then from a faculty standpoint, Andy, maybe you can talk to this. This empowers that kind of no-touch experience, right? The addition of an appliance is key to making sure that the faculty doesn't need to interact with anything.
That was the whole goal of this at the start, was if faculty are going to be interested in using something, they want to be as hands-off of it as possible, especially when it comes to the hardware in the space. If we were going to tell them they were going to have to press about 6 different buttons after they scheduled a recording, we probably wouldn't have gotten the amount of interest that we received on it. It really does show that when you have ease of use and you can just basically set it and forget it, it's really, really powerful for all users and all stakeholders who are involved with any kind of project or deployment like this.
It's also putting an architecture in that's flexible, putting an architecture in that's capable of supporting those ideas. And I think it starts with that lab. It starts with being able to set up a device, play around.
Build a sandbox. That's what we always say. Build a sandbox, go in there and beat it up. Change boxes around, have fun with it, mix things up. And when you have a team around you that is willing to do that, nothing can go wrong.
Right.
You could break it and start over. It doesn't matter. If you're not failing, you're not trying, right?
Yeah.
So essentially what you do is you got to do things that's good from an operational standpoint. You have to have a team that's willing to try. You have to have a team that's willing to learn new things. We didn't know what Panopto was a few years ago. We didn't know what lecture capture was a few years ago. We tiptoed into it, and now look at us. Now we got this huge deployment of it, and we have great partners now, like Epiphan and like Panopto, to get us through anything that we ever need.
If you're watching in and you see yourself as Andy in this role, or that you're trying to sort out how you're going to do lecture capture, go find Frank. And if you see yourself as Frank, you're the person that manages the technology in the room, and you don't want the headaches of the lecture capture, go find your Andy. Because when you two work together and you partner with a company like Epiphan and Panopto, we're going to make it easy on you. We're going to make it so you can do this at scale, and you're ultimately going to be more successful if you go in with that kind of unified approach together.
We're all in this together when it comes to higher ed. We all help each other out, but reach out and get your resources together, ask your questions, and then get in touch with the right people.
The end result is so rewarding. It really is. And it's really fun to get to look at the progression of how many people just want to get involved with doing any kind of content capture, even if it's a 2-hour lecture or if they're just doing some kind of 15-minute meeting where they want to have it recorded and archived. Those are the kinds of things that it's great to see the use case branch out, and it's great to get to brainstorm with folks. And even as we were designing the whole RebelFlex concept here for these classrooms, we were at that point where we were like, the faculty input is really going to matter here, because we're trying to talk about active learning, and we're trying to talk about how do we keep students engaged. And content capture, lecture capture, whatever you want to call it, is a huge foundation and a huge step to at least making sure that people have access to the material. So if there are any doubts, if there are any reasons to think, maybe this isn't for us, think again about what the students are getting out of it, especially because the student tuitions really matter when it comes to funding a campus and funding positions and things like that. Catering to them will make all the difference in the world.
Come see the Epiphan difference, come see what we're about, and please let us prove to you that we can make lecture capture on campus easy, and that we'll empower your organization to really engage those students, make it easy on the faculty, and make it really easy on your administrators, because that's the key. You got to balance all those different areas for it to be successful. And no better proof than UNLV and what you guys have done. So thank you so much, Frank. Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Chris, for joining. And for all those that listened in, by all means, please share this out with your folks, and don't hesitate to reach out to any of us as we help you take that journey as well.